Finnegans Wake by James Joyce. Book 1, Chapter 4, Section 85. Now then, leaving clashing ash, brawn, muscle, and brass made to oust earthen-born and rock crystal to wreck isinglass, but worming along gradually for our savings back towards mother water, so many miles from bank and Dublin stone, Olympiading even till the 11th dynasty, to reach that 32nd Hamlaugh. And to the question of Boney's unlawfully obtaining a pierced paraflam and claptrap fireguard, there crops out the still more salient point of the politish leanings and town pursuits of our forebear, El Don de Dunelli. May his ship thick stick in the bottle of the river, and all his cruisers stock locked in the borough of the seas. Who, when, within the black of your toenail, sir, of being mistakenly ambushed by one of the Uda Vedas, and as close as made no matter, ma'am, to being KO'd off-hand when the Hugono heckler with the Peter the Painter wanted to hole him, was consistently practicing the first of the primary and imprescriptible liberties of the Pacific subject by circulating, be British boys, to your belly bone and chuck a chum a chance, alongst one of our unprohibited cemetery through farts, open to the buggy and bike to walk Wellington Park Road, with the curb or Quaker's quack nostrum under his oxter, and his alpin stuck in his red hand, a highly commendable exercise, or number 2 of our Acta Legitima Plebea, on the brink, beware to bulk a man at his will, of taking place upon a public seat, to what, thereby butts, most easterly, but all goes west, of Blackpool bridges as a public protest and nature-like vice, without intent to annoy, either being praised good thankfully for the wrath-bereaved ring-dove and the fear-stung boa constrictor, and all the more jolly well pleased which he was at having the other people's weather. But to return to the Atlantic and Phoenicia proper, as if that were not to be enough for anyone, but little headway, if any, was made in solving the was not to be crime conundrum, when a child of Mam, Festi King, of a family long and honourably associated with the tar and feathers industries, who gave an address in Old Plummanch, Mayo, of the Saxons in the heart of foul-famed Potheen district, was subsequently held up at the Old Bailey on the calends of Mars, under an incompatibly framed indictment of both the counts, from each equinoxious points of view, the one fellow's fetch being the other fellow's person. That is to see, flying cruisats out of his overalls and making fezzes immodst his forces on the field. Oh yea, when the prisoner soaked and methylated appeared in dry dock, a patently Ambrosia realized, like Curser's corduroy caricature, wearing beside stains, rents, and patches his fine shirt, straw braces, sou'wester, and a policeman's corkscrew trousers, all out of the true, as he had purposely torn all his Simtrix Manx bespokes in Mamer time, deposing for his execution with all floors of sparse in the Royal Irish vocabulary. How the whole Paterjan Martin, triperseide, suet, and sulphate of copperas had fallen off him quite unaccountably, like the crystallizations of alum, uneven, when he was trying for to stick fire to himself. In fact, he was dripping as he found upon stripping for a pipkin of malt as he feared the cold rain. It was attempting by the crown P.C. Robert to show that King Eloah's crowbar, once known as Meleki, impersonating a climbing boy, rubbed some pixies of any luvial Peatsmore o'er his face, plucks and pusses, and a clantorf as the best means of disguising himself, and was to the Middle White Fair in Mudford of a Thursday feists of Peeler and Pole under the ill-assumed names of Takingfest and Rabwork, picked by him and Anthony out of a telephone book, allegedly, with a pedigreed pig, unlicensed, and a hyacinth. They were on the sea by the plain of Ur 999 years, and they never cried crack or ceased from regular paddle wicking, till that they landed their two and trifling selves, amidst camel and ass, greybeard and suckling, priest and pauper, mott matron, and Mary Meg, into the middle of the mud storm. The gathering, convened by the Irish agricultural and prepostoral outragosations to help the Irish muck to look his brother Dane in the face, and attended, thanks to Larry, by large numbers of Christies and Jews' totems, to spite of the deluge, was distinctly of a scattery kind when the Ballybricken he could get no good of, after the cock of the walking, through a few fancy-fought mains, ate some of the doorweg, the pikey later selling the gentleman ratepayer because she, Francie sister, that is to say, ate a whole side of his, the animal's, sty on a struggle street, qui sta troria, in order to pay off hiss or lick 6 doubloons, 15 arrears of his, the villain's, not the Rublin's rent. Remarkable evidence was given anon by an eye, ear, nose, and throat witness, whom Wesleyan chapel goers suspected of being a plain-clothes priest W.P. situate at Null Null Medical Square, who, upon letting down his rice and peas screen, covered disc, and having been sullenly cautioned against yawning while being grilled, smiled. He had a one bumper at parting from Mrs. Moreau in the morning, and stated to his elicitor under his Morse most accents globless that he had slept with a bona fides, and that he would be there to remember the filth of November, Haytenaring, rowdy, which, with the Gibulis of Juno and the dates of Old Langxiety, was going, please the rainmaker, to Decem's within the ephemerides of profane history. One with Tawny, Yetzosley, and Tamara, and one thing which would pig-sticklerly strike a person of such sorely observational powers as Sam, him, and Moffat. Though there's not the reason why. The striking thing about it was that he was petrified to see, hear, taste, and smell, as his time of night, how Hyacinth O'Donnell B.A., described in the calendar as a mixer and word painter with a part of civis passum, tacked for dung fork, on the fair green at the hour of 24 o'clock, sought, the Willie Cassidy of the fried hoffer, to sack, suck, stab, and slaughter single-handed another two of the old kings, Gush MacHale and Roaring O'Crean, Jr., both changelings unlocalized, of no address and non-communicables, between him and whom, ever since Wallops before the Mies of Lewes, bad blood existed on the ground of the boar's trespass on the bull, or because he first parted his polar beaver hair in two ways, or because they were creep-foxed and groosuppers over a nippy and a noveletta, or because they could not say mias, moot, and daft miath. The litigants, he said, local kongsmen and Donalds, kings of the Arons and the Dalkeys, kings of Mud and Tory, even the goat king of Killigordan, were egged on by their supporters in the shape of better women with bow-strung hair of Carotha genuine ruttiness, weaving crimson petties and screaming from Isod's tower top. There were cries from the thick sets in court and from the MacDoublins on the Bohunbreen of Mind the Bank from Banagher Mixer. Pro dos o Donner. Aye. Exhibit his relics. Boo. Use the tongue more. Give lip less. But it oozed out in Deadman's dark scenery court through cross examination of the case-hardened testes that, when and where that knife of knives of the three-partied ambush was laid, roughly spouting about half hours twixt dusk and dawn by Waterhose's middle Europeic time, near Stop and Think, High Chief Evervearns, and only Abfall tree in all the land, there was not as much light from the widowed moon as would dim a child's altar. The mixer, accordingly, was bluntly broached, and in the best basil to boot, as to whether he was one of those lucky cocks for whom the audible, visible, nosable, edible world existed, that he was only too cognitively, conjubundantly sure of it, because living, loving, breathing, and sleeping morpho melosophono pancreatis, as he most significantly did, whenever he thought he saw, he felt, he made a bell clipper. Whether he was practically sure, too, of his lugs and truies names in this king and blousman business, that he was pediculously so, certified, as card could be lying. Be the lonely I will, it was more to so somebody, a quite Cesar son, a Saturn weddings. How did he, the green-eyed mister, arrive at the B.A.? That was like his pole. A cross-grained trapper with murty odd oogs, owl-florated airs, inquiline nose, and twitterous mouth. He would be. Who could bid you out to the tenured fool when astald? Balera jabara. Some Madger bore, too, Aiguines, and with tumblerous legs, reed and nominated, Helmingham, Urchin Wine, Rutter, Egbert, Cornwall, Odin, Maximus, Esme, Essa, Saxon, Vercingetorix, Ethelwulf, Ruprecht, Edoa, Bentley, Osmot, Desart, Idrasselman? Holy Saint Eiffel, the very phoenix! It was Chudley Magno once more between the defaudates at the dumb scene. The two child spies were preasing him ausa del volug, but the renting of his rock was from three wicked Vancouvers, forest bent down awits. Art thou sure? You betty come Bilum comes. One of the oxmen's thingabossers he've had. And had he been refreshed by the founts of bounty playing there is a pain a land in Long's googling barrel, a loss of Lorded Ward, and a lack of Sir Philip, a surgeonet, shower down, could suck some gargling bubbles out of the five lamps in Porteran's praise. Wurgerling and Mary's? As who's wouldn't laving his leaf time in Blackpool, but of course he could call himself Tim too, if he had to. But he could any time, when he pleased, win and place a stoker tempted by eaves dripping against the driver, who was a witness as well. Sacred avatar, how the devil did they guess it? Two dreamiums in one dromium, yes, and no error, and both as like a duel of lentils? Precisely. So he was pelted out of the coram podulu, was he? Be the powers that be, he was. The prince in principle should not expose his person. Macacoviole. Ruscamen, camarade. Sooner Galwegian, he would say. Not unintoxicated, fair witness. Drunk as a fish up. Asked whether she minded whither he smoot. Not if he barks into flames. Anent his ejaculations to his cross-gun lorn, cosa? It was corso in curso on courser again. The gracious miss was, we not doubt, sensible how Yellowatty on the Forks was altered. That she usually was, oh doubt me not. As to his religion, if any, it was the see you Sunday sort. Exactly what he meant by a pederast pig. Bedger Cobb's just a gent who prayed his Lent. And if middle-class Portoverus was a usual beast, by night as useful as a vomitor-shorn man. If he had organized their courts, martials, did that and day and days he had. Lindelly, coke or skillies, smell me gart without a gate? Hardly a drope. The grazing rights, Mrs. Magistra Martinetta, expired with the expiry of the goat's sire, if they were not mistaken. That he exactly could not tell the worshipfuls, but his mother and waiters had the recipice for the price of the coffin, and that he was there to tell them that herself was the velocipede that could tell them Kit Kat. A mounder in tongue, in pounder in jowl, farther order about the matters of pronunciation, distributary endings, and we recommends. Quare hircum? No answer. Unde gentium fe? No, Are you not dazzling on the age of a volcano? Sire, I am deed. And how old of him? He was intending to study Pulu, which was meant in a shirt of two shifts, Malcolm or up fin, three-headed ladder. That a hidden thighs under a bush at the sunface would bait a serpent to a mill race through the heather. A bird colour deftdom ethnic fort, perhaps? Perhaps? Sure, and glumps handy. Jolt of Feason as well. Hokey Jasons, then. In a piggy geeses, on the pontiff's order as tours there's an ital on an attack. As a go lolly bit to Joss, Lily and Tululi. But why this hankanochaff, and whence this second tone, son yet son? He had the kowtow in his boxer's flay of face. So this, that solicistras, setting odds even at defiance, took the loud from the labour writer. What displaced Tob, Dilk, and Haley had not been greatly in love with the game. And changing the vendors from the King's Head to the Republican's Arms, as to the Puxinettis, invinks from flagpole to antepost during the Ephraim's Father Time's Bakeside, and the Regents in the plant's own reigning, with the Skiddy Stars and the Morcan wind-up, how they appealed to him then. That it was Wildfire's night, and all the Betty Gallaghers. Mick Michael's sword shrieking shreks through the Wilkinses, and Necanicolia's toasting forks pricking prongs on the toony bladders. Let there be fight? And there was. What? On the side of the angels, you said? Guinea's gap, he said, between what they said and the pussy kitties. In the middle of the garth, then. That they mustn't touch it. The devoted couple was, or were, only two disappointed solicitresses on the job of the unfortunate class on Saturn's mountain fort. That was about it, yeah. And Camillus then said to Gemellus, I should know you. Parfaitly. And Gemellus said to Camillus, yes, your brother. Absolutely. And if it was all about that egregious, sir, about that and the other, if he was not alluding to the hole in the wall, that he was, when he was not eluding from the hole of the woman. Briefly, how much such biggin all finally struck him now, like the crack that broke the bank in Multifarnham. Whether he fell in with what they meant, curse that he suppoxed he did. Thus Thoris, Thomas Tarm, the ruditus rotter in robactum, surtopical, and subhuman. If it was in Yapanoi's language, Ak bad club, Ugs and oars with Rian O'Kelly, to put it certainly, we wrong, shockingly. Such as Turley Pierstar really is that he might never that night, treely and rurally. Bloody ug foul morcus bog, wurus hora cortas, trumpus porna penny coxapata stipata, pat upper strip puck putunach, eh? You have it right. Neardrakan oinkuish. But a new complexion was put upon the matter, when to the perplexedly uncondemnatory bench whereon Punic judgeship strove with penal law, The senior king of all, Pegerfesti, as soon as the outer layer of stucco muck had been removed at the request of a few live jurors, declared in a loud burst of poesy, through his Brythonic interpreter on his oath, Muhuith pius muhies afera buhora muer hiriosamas. Whereas, take notice, be the relics of the bones of the story buccal, that was ate by Cleopatrick, the sow, princess of parked porkers, afore God and all their honours and king's commons that, what he would swear to the tyranny of Dundalgan or any other tyranny, Yif live Thurkles followed him, about sure that there was no steel, and that nevertheless what was deposited from the eyeballed ear-big nose-naving gut-throat, he did not fire a stone either, before or after he was borne up and down to that time. And incidentalizing that they might talk of McCarthy, or they might walk to Balstarty, or they might join the neighbor party and come on to Porterfuel. This the Sacerdologer, and the neck to endorse with the head bowed on him over his outturned nor'easter, by protesting to his lip readers, with a just been cleaned bared facedness, a beam of moonlight's hope, in the same Trelawney, what he would impart, please bench, to the lewd Joses, and the gentlemen in juries, and the four of masters who had been all those yarns yearning for that good one about why he left Dublin, and Amrita Beaker coddling doom, as an Inishman was as good as any canton natal. If he was to perish by the market stake before the dorming of the morn, he schooled never asked to see or light of this world, or the other world, or any either world, of Tyrannog, as true as he was there in that jackabox that minute, or wheeled or wind. No, thank to yous. The inexhaustible waysail horn tot of Iski Bausch, the Hyleth up the Whaleth, of the end known Abgod, of the fire, of the moving away of the hawks with his heroes, and war horror, if ever in his exchequered career he up and lave a chancery hand, to take or throw the sign of a mortal stick or stone at man, yo lamb or Salvation Army, either before or after being baptized down to that most holy and ever blessed hour. Here upon the half-kneed castle knockers attempting Caith Wishley to lilt his holy mess, the pause and make the sign of the Roman god Helicphaex, Zaroshi, Zists. In his excitement, the latter had broken extra Castilian, into which the whole audience perseguired and pursued him, odia podrida, outbroke much yell acres from our owners in the Hial, in which, under the mollification of Methelglin, the testifier reluctantly, but with ever so ladylike indecorum, joined.